So it started off this morning early, and I remember you saying something a minute ago about the 4 o'clock wake up and what that means to you.
I'm not the normal wake up early guy. I think it's probably, when I look at my journey of entrepreneurship, it's the next phase. You have to be wherever you have to be and do whatever it has to take. The allure of entrepreneurship is this flexible schedule, but the truth of entrepreneurship is it's a never-ending schedule. But there's phone calls prior to work, phone calls well into the evening at work, emails, their new electronic lease, the emails never end.
Yeah.
But today's an exciting day. Up at 4, car at 5, jet at 6. New York by 9:30.
So can you give a little bit of the story of how you got here?
It didn't start out like this. You know my story, Rod.
I know a little bit of it, yeah.
I was working in the field. I was, a roustabout in the oil field. I helped manage pulling units. I started off with a high school dropout with a GED working in the oil field. At one point in about 2000, I injured my back and I needed to rethink things because I had a lot of years left of me and I was doing manual labor. It was difficult. But a bad boss got me thinking. I said, man, if this guy could be in charge of my life, I'm going to do something about this. And so I've really always been this real anti-establishment guy, rebel at heart. So I kind of made this conscious decision. I said, you can't beat the machine being outside of the machine. You got to get in the machine. And that was kind of my crazy goal. So it started off being pissed off about the situation I was in. I started going to college at night, on the weekends. Well, then I started getting these promotions. I'd apply for promotions, I'd get the promotions, and I'd move. So it took me forever to graduate. I ended up graduating online at Walden because I couldn't.
Right.
The company I was working for was promoting me and moving me to these really remote locations. And,
Okay.
I started taking on this mentality of the situation you find yourself in today is a direct result of the decisions and choices you made yesterday. Now that's pretty common knowledge, but for me it was revolutionary. So I thought to myself, very consciously, I said, if the situation I'm in today is because of the choice I made yesterday, and I do believe that, then that means I can make different choices and I can create a separate future than I have today. So I have this path as my future and make what I call future 2. If you were crazy enough to give me the job, I was crazy enough to do it. So I would just never say no. And I would actively try to get these jobs, and I did well. And then I started, being in charge of leadership, right? And so my real goal was to be a leader because that's when I ran into my bad boss. He was definitely a nice person.
Okay, got it.
He was a good person, really wanted to do the right thing. He just didn't have the skills to do it.
I get your point.
And for me, a guy who's highly motivated, being under a guy without the skills to develop it, and he had become a boss through, putting in the time, right? Looking at the 20 years of putting in the time to be a low-level manager was not attractive to me. But that was what he knew, and that was what his plan for me was. I would tell my friends, if you don't make a plan for your future, they got one for you. And it's called more work for less. And the more they get out of you, the less you're getting for it. And I said, I'm going to make my own plan. I'm going to go where they say I can go. I'm going to do what they say I'm going to do. But I didn't know what was going to happen. But how I got here was just a series of risks. It was a risk to quit the oil business, the only thing I knew, and go to work as a chief operating officer of a debt collection agency. And then it was a huge risk to leave that and to go to the venture that ultimately started the company that I run today. And those risks started becoming conversations about equity. And that's the hardest thing to get in this business. It's one thing to get a job, it's another thing to get a piece of the action. When you go into a deal where you can possibly earn a piece of the company, very risky. People don't give that away because they know they've got something that works. They give that away because they think they need you to help make it work, but it might not. I lived in a camper for 18 months on Lake Worth. I commuted back and forth to Odessa to see my family on the weekends, some weekends, not every weekend. Other weekends I was on a drilling rig or I was on a pulling unit just as the operations manager. The other risk was when we started the company, started picking up, doing these a lot of things I'd never done before. But I just went out there and did it. I remember it was June of 2011, joined the company. Prior to that, I was trying to hustle up some work offshore in West Africa, working through some stuff in Kurdistan or Northern Iraq, and I was just doing this crazy stuff trying to build this company. And then we landed on the asset that we have today. But I just went out there in the field because the one thing I knew was operations. So what really helped me take those risks was this deep understanding of how the business worked, or at least how the men and women work. So I could go out there and talk to men and women doing the work and say, look, we have to make this happen. I could get more out of them because I could speak their language, because I was
one
I
of
did
them.
that job, yeah.
Right.
The other thing I learned at the previous large oil company I was with, top 3 large oil companies in the world, was I just started taking over work until somebody slapped my hand and said, that's not your work.
What do you mean by that exactly?
Well, like I used to sit around and say, well, I don't think that's my area of responsibility, or that's kind of his thing. I would just start getting stuff done. I just start making something happen. I try not to step on toes, but maybe I did, but I got things done. And what I found was I was always rewarded for that. And what I found was the world and corporations and businesses and enterprises are desperate for people that will deliver results. You look at my LinkedIn, it says, I consistently deliver remarkable results and I have fun doing it. Once you get comfortable with taking over and delivering something you've never done before and finding a different way, it makes it a little easier. So I just kept translating that, and that translated into a vice president of operations, and that translated into a chief operating officer, and that translated into president, and that translated into CEO. CEO left, they tapped me, and and I was eager to do it, don't get me wrong, but I was also scared to death, right?
Right.
And so
let's put a timeline on this. So you started working in the oil well what year? How old were you?
89.
No, how old were you at this time?
17.
Wow, 17.
Yeah.
And so 28 years old, you're like, my back's gone.
Yep.
And I had to start transitioning out.
30, yeah, by
About 30
30,
years
I can't do this work forever. Yeah.
30 years old, and you started going like, okay, I got to go to college. And so
At 37, I graduate with a bachelor's degree.
Wow, 37 years
Yeah.
old. Okay. And you're still a young guy.
I'm 47. That was 10 years ago.
So 10 years ago, you're now not in fire and rescue. You're right after this, right? You're doing what at this time?
I'm
37 years old.
managing a pretty large construction project in central Wyoming.
What is your title? Do you remember anything like that?
I am a construction team leader.
So
So I've got about
37
15
years old.
guys working for me that are supervisors, and I'm a first level manager.
Wow, that's incredible.
Well, I didn't really even decide
Right, exactly.
to do anything until I was about 30, 28, 29, 30.
Exactly.
I said,
This ain't working for me.
yeah, you can't drink beer and mow the yard all weekend. You gotta.
What are some guys trying to make that?
Yeah, I mean, that's okay.
Yeah,
But for me, it just wasn't satisfying.
that's incredible.